It all started on a night that felt, well, like an ending. I found myself standing in this cold, damp alley behind a tiny music venue, and the sound of that polite, totally indifferent applause was still kind of ringing in my ears. My keyboard case felt heavier than it ever had before, and there was just this one thought looping in my head, like a flat, gray note of defeat. I actually whispered it out loud, just to the wet pavement. Maybe that was the last try. The words just felt wrong. Like a lie I was trying to force myself to believe. The passion that had always been my native language, my reason for everything, it had just become exhausting. I mean, up on that stage, it was a disaster. My fingers felt like they belonged to someone else. The chords I'd practiced 100 times in my little apartment just landed all stiff and foreign. And my voice, which is usually my anchor, it totally wobbled on the second verse. I could see the audience, and it was just a handful of people, turning back to their conversations, their phones. That connection, it was just gone. When the last note faded, the silence that followed was just deafening. It was this blanket of absolute indifference. So I packed up in a total haze and slipped out the side door. I just couldn't face any of that well-meaning, empty praise. The spark wasn't just low. I was convinced it was gone for good. This feeling has a name, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you have felt it too. It's called creative burnout. It's that awful moment when the thing you love starts to feel like a chore, a heavy obligation you just can't carry anymore. And yeah, that was me, right there in that alley, feeling the full, crushing weight of it. But then, something shifted. Right across the street, the City Museum stood between these two modern glass towers, all old and stoic, and there was this banner that read, "Last week, Ruins and Reverence." And that word, ruins, it just pulled at me. It felt right. So without even really thinking about it, I crossed the street and walked inside, like 15 minutes before they closed. I walked past all these canvases of crumbling temples, and honestly, I was feeling nothing, until I reached the very last room. And there it was. A painting of two black women in these sunlit Greek ruins. One was sitting on a step, her skin this rich espresso color, with long silver-white hair that looked like liquid metal. The other one was standing, holding a golden lyre, her skin a warm brown, and she was crowned with this incredible storm of electric blue and flame-orange curls. I glanced down at the little placard next to it. Sisters of the Last Hymn. Artist unknown. The description was so brief and academic, It called the figures muses or priestesses. It gave absolutely no hint of what was about to happen next. And then I heard it, but not with my ears. It was inside my head. A sound so pure and distinct, it felt more real than the hum of the gallery lights. It just vibrated right in my chest. I squeezed my eyes shut, thinking, okay, I'm just stressed. But when I opened them, the note was still there. A perfect phantom echo. That was the beginning. That single note was the hook, and it reeled me in completely. I went home, but the sound followed me, and pretty soon it started to multiply, becoming the start of this obsession. It was a puzzle I just had to solve. That note was relentless. It was hiding in the rumble of the train, the hiss of my shower. Just this single, perfect pitch that clung to the very edge of my awareness. So I get back to my keyboard, and another note just appears in my mind, a response to the first one. Then a third and a fourth, all of them arriving completely out of order. They were these little fragments that I had to catch and piece together. It didn't feel like I was composing, it felt like I was transcribing, like I was remembering a language I'd never actually known, piecing together a song that felt both ancient and incredibly vital. And then the vision started. My small apartment would just fade, and I'd be in the ruins from the painting with them. They told me their names. Nova, the one with the fire and ice hair and the golden lyre, she was the muse of chaotic inspiration, the melody itself. And Onyx, with her silver hair and those calm, analytical eyes, she was the muse of structure, of memory, and of consequence. They showed me what they were fighting against, and it wasn't a person or a villain. It was a force they called forgetting. It looked like a creeping gray fog at the edges of their world that dulled color and silenced sound, and I recognized it immediately. It was that numbness I'd been feeling, the burnout, that endless scroll into static.
So, just as I was starting to finally understand what was going on, the stakes got impossibly high. I was back at the museum and overheard two administrators talking. The painting, Sisters of the Last Hymn, my doorway to their world, was being de-accessioned. It was going into storage.
So, that gave me a deadline. 3 weeks. I had 3 weeks to finish their hymn, this song against forgetting, before the door was closed and hidden away in the dark for who knows how long. The pressure was immense, but for the first time in months, it was a pressure that had a purpose. You see, I wasn't just writing a song for myself anymore. Nova and Onyx made that really clear. The painting was a beacon, and the song was the signal, and I was the one who could hear it, the one who could translate it for my time. It was my job to get it done. I just knew I had to perform it, right there in front of the painting. After getting completely shut down by the administration, the curator, this guy named Elias, he discreetly arranged for me to stay late on the exhibit's final night. He just called it inventory oversight. He understood, without me having to explain, the completely impossible that sometimes art needs an answer. So there I was, all alone in the silent, dark museum. I put on my headphones, and as I played the first couple of notes, the world just shifted. The gallery walls became transparent, layered over the sun-washed ruins. I was in two places at once, playing for an audience of two ancient muses. Onyx had insisted on one line of lyrics, just a single couplet to ground the entire piece. I sang it into the microphone, and my voice felt both strange and more my own than it ever had before. That was the moment of realization, of taking ownership, not just of the music, but of my own creative power. In the vision, as the music swelled, something incredible happened. That gray fog of forgetting, which had been creeping closer and closer to the ruined city, it actually stopped. With every single phrase that bent toward remembrance, every chord that shows hope over despair, the fog receded. It was being pushed back by the sound. But the song didn't end with some neat final chord. Nova and Onyx taught me that remembrance isn't a conclusion, it's a choice. So the song ends on this suspended, questioning note. It's like a held breath that asks the listener, okay, so what are you going to do next? And you know what? It worked. I uploaded the track, called it The Lyre That Remembers. It never went viral or anything, but it didn't need to. It found its way, through algorithms and recommendations, to the people who really needed to hear it. The people who left comments saying it made them remember why they started creating it in the first place. So my journey started with this feeling of complete creative loss, and it led me to become a partner in this ancient fight against forgetting. The song wasn't just about me, and its purpose was never fame. It was about being a thread of connection. And that leaves me with a question for you. What's the forgotten song inside of you? What part of your own story do you need to remember and bring back into the light?